my name's Jenny McLachlan and I write books for children just like you. In this Roarsome Writing Club video, I want to tell you about mighty metaphors, what they are and how I use them in my writing. I'm also going to set you a challenge to write some metaphors of your own. I always think of metaphors as more dramatic than similes, so I don't use very many, but when I do use them, I love the impact they have. Metaphors really make the reader sit up and listen. If we're going to talk about metaphors though, we need to have a quick think about similes first. You might already know that a simile is a writing technique where we compare two things using the words like or as. Here's a simile I wrote just yesterday for the sequel to Dead Good Detectives. I wanted the narrator Sid to describe Bones, a pirate ghost, looming over her dad's shoulder. So I wrote, Bones was hovering over my dad's shoulder like a dark shadow that filled the kiosk. Now this is a simile. The big clue is that I used the word like to compare Bones with the shadow. But then I looked at what I'd just written and I thought, actually, that would be so much better if I wrote it as a metaphor. So I changed it to this. Bones was hovering over my dad's shoulder, a dark shadow that filled the kiosk. Why did I bother changing it? Well, I thought it sounded more dramatic and creepier to suggest Bones actually was a dark shadow. I thought that the metaphor would make the reader feel more nervous, and as a writer, I'm always trying to make the reader feel things. The more they feel, the better my writing is. I see metaphors as more bossy than similes, and I save them for when I want to make a strong, punchy statement. I think similes are suggestions, whereas metaphors are orders. Let me give you another example. In Return to Roar, Arthur, his twin sister Rose, and Win, the wizard ninja, find themselves in a very bad situation. They're being chased by wolves towards a cave they call the Vampire because the entrance has two huge icicles pointing down. Arthur says, slipping and sliding in the thick snow, we run as fast as we can towards the gaping teeth of the vampire. This is a metaphor. The icicles aren't really teeth, but I wanted to put the idea in the reader's head that they are like teeth, sharp, powerful, ready to bite. If I'd written it as a simile like this, slipping and sliding in the thick snow, we run as fast as we can towards the icicles that were pointed like teeth and hung down in front of the vampire. It would be okay, but it wouldn't have been as scary. The metaphor makes you imagine the children are about to be swallowed up by the cave. It's more frightening. By the way, this is also an example of personification because I'm making the cave sound like it's alive. But that's a whole different video. One thing that I always have to watch out for when I use metaphors is that I don't confuse my readers. Let me show you what I mean. In the land of Roar, Arthur says, Roar's night sky was crammed so full of stars, it looked like a bag of glitter had been thrown across black velvet. Did you spot the like? I used a simile to help the reader imagine a dark sky packed full of thousands of stars. If I'd used a metaphor instead of a simile, I think it might have confused the reader because it would have said, Roar's night sky was crammed so full of stars, it was a bag of glitter thrown across black velvet. Now that's confusing. It sounds like Roar's sky was literally made of velvet that had glitter thrown over it. I want to intrigue my readers and make them feel things, but I don't want to confuse them. Now, I have a metaphor challenge for you. Here is a picture of a character from Dead Good Detectives. He's called Old Scratch and he's a 400-year-old man who keeps ghosts trapped in a ghostly tavern. If you haven't already worked it out, he's not a nice guy. He's the villain in the book. So when I describe him, I want the reader to feel scared. He wears ancient, pale, faded clothes and he looks ancient and pale and faded because he's 400 years old. Here's a collection of words, nouns, adjectives, that I find helpful to use when I'm describing Old Scratch. Spider's web, stone, dust, ice. This is quite a mixture of words. Some of them make me imagine fragile things, others tough, hard things. Can you think of any other words you could add to this collection to help us describe this very old, dangerous man? Now use some of these words to write your own metaphors to describe Old Scratch. And remember, you are trying to scare the reader because he is the villain. Of course, you can use any of your own words and you can change the way my words are written. Here are a few sentence starters to get you going. I'm going to join in too because I can't resist describing baddies. It's so much fun. But remember, try not to use like or as in your sentences or you will turn your metaphors into similes. And although similes are great, right now we're writing mighty metaphors. A little warning before you begin. Metaphors are harder to write than similes. But I believe in you. Let's go. How did you get on? Here's what I came up with. I said Old Scratch's eyes were boiled sweets with all the colour sucked out of them. And I said that his hair was a spider's web of greasy, trembling strands, and that his smile was a crack in ice, jagged and sharp. I'm going to be honest, I was really tempted to add the word like to this last sentence and turn it into a simile. Old Scratch's smile was like a crack in ice, jagged and sharp. But I resisted because today we are writing metaphors. And sometimes when you're writing, it's good to be bossy. I hope you loved writing your own mighty metaphors. Now, why don't you create your own villain and write metaphors to describe what they look like? You could watch one of my other Roarsome Writing Club videos to help you. Just remember to let your imagination run wild.